Hey Bodana, what time is it?
It's time for the ChessKid Youth Championships 2026.
Hello, it is time, and welcome back to the ChessKid Youth Chess Championship here, under 16, and it's the Group B. Now, if you missed the first group, the Group A, don't worry, because this field, it is stacked with absolute talent, all getting ready to battle it out on the clock and the board. I'm your host, International Master Ivan Kahalska, and I am here with our FIDE Fun Master, Mike Klein. Mike, it was such an electric first half. What do you think we have in store for us, everyone, in the second half?
That it was. The GMs went through earlier today, but this is going to be the Americas edition. We have 4 Americans, 1 Canadian, and 1 Argentinian. So our Western Hemisphere is represented well. And we have 1 Grandmaster in the field. We have 1 person who got as close to Grandmaster as is absolutely possible in the field, and a lot of other very exciting names that are probably, if they're not household names yet, they're going to be very soon. We'll get to the players in a minute, but we're going to repeat the format from earlier today. For those of you who woke up early with us, thank you. For Breakfast with Yovi and Breakfast with Fun Master, we're going to have the other 6 players play a double round robin, just like earlier today. 3+1, they're each going to play 10 games because they don't play themselves. That would be weird. The top 2 players advance. We've got 6 players. The goal is to get into the top 2. And Yovi, what will we see tomorrow for the players that do advance?
Yeah, if they do advance, we are in for a treat because we begin with the semi-finals, which is a best of 4, and it's a knockout format, which means every match counts for absolutely everything, and you lose, you go home. It's as easy as that, and then the final is best of 6, and you get to be crowned the ChessKid Youth Champion. And first prize, well, nets you $3,000. It's a big chunk of the money in a 15,000 total prize pool. And I think this is going to be some healthy motivation for our kids.
Absolutely. I don't know who is going to take home the biggest prize, but whoever is, you might want to consult with one of our players today. That's right. International Master Ryo Chen says his favorite subject in school is economics, and he wants to go into a career in finance. So Ryo should be your first call if you end up being the winner of our event. There's Ryo, one of the few kids to admit that he's probably not going to be a professional chess player. So Ryo is going to be your first call. He will, I don't know, probably tell you to put it in index funds, anything like Rex Singfield. That's what Rex told me once, index funds, okay? Anyway, there is our entire field. And there we see, we are led as far as Chess.com Blitz rating, top 5 Chess.com Blitz rated International Master Faustino, the man made of gold, leads everybody with that gaudy 3283 Blitz rating, 1 game away from being a GM elect. He will, of course, get there very soon. And yeah, many people are tuning in to see Fausti, and rightly so. He did once beat Magnus in a Blitz game online.
Yeah, and he described that as one of the highlights of his chess career. Just imagine that, just 12 years old and you've already beaten world number 1 Magnus Carlsen online chess. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, but he's done it. And he wasn't the only one. We also saw big names there, Tani Adewumi, also Andy Woodward. I mean, what a contender he is. He's already like defending ChessKid champion, but that's not the only title he has. He has so many, and recently just won the Tata Steel Challengers.
Right, and that is not a misprint. 3582 bullet rating, the highest ever in the history of Chess.com. Hikaru Nakamura's record stood for many years until Andy broke it not more than a month ago, actually a few weeks ago. He did it by playing a lot of 10-second chess. And for those of you who tuned into the earlier broadcast today, we showed an interview that I did with Andy where I asked him, if you played Magnus in 100 games of 10-second chess, what would be the score? Andy is a very modest young man. He said he'd win 85-15 over Magnus. He would drop a few games to Magnus. Okay, so coming up, the 10-second bullet Chess.com championship. Maybe we'll have that one day. He's also the former winner of the Chess.com puzzle championship, and he has won the U.S. junior championship. I think he's actually the reigning champion in that. So his list of bona fides is very long. We also have Megan Paragua. That is also not a misprint. Her uncle is a grandmaster, Mark Paragua. She's very close to passing Mark in rating. We've also got, as we mentioned, Ryo Chen, two-time winner of the ChessKid Youth SCC back in 2020 and 2021. And we have the returning champion from last year's under 13, Aaron Mendez, the youngest IM from Canada. And actually, with all of that, the games are underway. And it seems like it happens every single show, but we have a London system. I don't know. Did we make this into their contract or something? But Yovi, besides that London on the left, what do you see happening here?
Well, the London suddenly became a little bit more mainstream as we're now going into some kind of Queen's Gambit declined or kind of semi-Slav there with Bishop F4 thrown in. So I think that we should actually check in on Andy Woodward. Also, I'm looking at Faustino Oro. That is an open Sicilio there on the right as he plays white against Megan Paragua. And Megan, she might on paper be the lowest rated, but I wouldn't underestimate her with a very tactical style. And Ryo Chen against Tani recently getting his first GM norm in a classical event. So I'm actually don't know. I really don't know which one to go for. So I'm going to actually pass the choice to you, Mike. Sorry about that.
Let's go to our defending champion. Don't be sorry. Let's see if we can sell Amon Hamilton some chessable courses because we have a London system. And interesting, Amon is Canadian, and we have a Canadian playing against the London. So far left of your screen, let's take a look at our defending champion. Andy Woodward beat Yuj Erdemish in the finals last year. Yuj has already punched his ticket to tomorrow. We will see if Andy is able to join him. We'll keep it at the 3 split for now. But if we take a look at this position, the bishop on G3 is still targeting the center of the chessboard. And that bishop often comes alive in this London system. What else do you see here?
Yeah, it often comes alive. It's just waiting there and is ready for that tension in the center to just get eliminated. And then it simply, as you say, just resurrects itself. But and here we're seeing that there's already some questions for Andy Woodward to face. You know, he had to deal with the threats against the knight on D2. And now he's had to castle queenside. Now, it's kind of debatable whether that king is pretty safe there. I'm suspecting it is because the knight on D7 really needs to be on C6 if it wants to be targeting the white king. So everything looks okay for Andy right now, but it's going to be interesting because when the kings have castled on opposite sides, it means that both sides are going to be initiating play. By that, I mean just opening up lines against each other's king as quickly as possible.
Some very interesting geometry. There was a pin on the knight this way. Andy castled to pin his knight the other way and into an open file. Computer totally agrees with his position. And now he swings his bishop around the world to break the pin. Some fascinating geometry. Let's sell some more chessable courses because Maurice Ashley wrote a fantastic chessable course on the geometry. And you know what? This is a perfect example. Who would have thought that the London bishop would go all the way around the world to D6 to B4, and that actually was the best maneuver. Unbelievable creativity, and that solves the problem of what to do about the pin on this knight and the pressure on the knight. Okay, so the queens might be coming off the board, and I gotta say, if I'm white, I'm pretty happy about that because I think the white king was in a little more danger than the black king. So if the queens leave the board, that is probably for the best for white.
Yeah, a very creative defense there from Andy to get the queens off. As you mentioned, the queens are going to come off, and then it's going to be a question of who's going to be dominating in the center. And that is something that is yet to be determined. But I do feel that white is the touch better because, you know, that knight on D2 looks like it doesn't have too much potential, but I can see a life for it sitting pretty on C5. And that is going to sure annoy black. And so B3. And then the question is how to mobilize absolutely everything. And the rerouting of the pieces are going to start happening anytime now. Now, knight to F3. What next?
Well, as you provided that great analysis, just give some love to the chat. If anybody ever deserved their name, shout it out. It's Hamrick Chess, who wants to give me the honorary GM title for getting so many kids into chess. But I have to say, it's to my own detriment and to Yovi's detriment because the same kids that I've taught through my ChessKid videos are now coming back to beat us. Fausti Oro literally learned how to play chess on ChessKid with the great translation by WIME Vet Garcia, who translated my videos into Spanish. And now these kids are knocking on the door of GM. So if I had to do all over again, would I raise a group of youngsters that can all beat me? I'm not sure, but I appreciate the love, Hamrock Chess. Let's get back here. I don't need the honorary GM title. I just love what I do. And I've got a great team around me at ChessKid. So rook up to E3. Do you think that white's going to double rooks on the E5? Oh, why is B5 a mistake? Looks like a somewhat natural move. Oh, it just hangs.
It does look.
It hangs
Yeah, and suddenly, whoops.
You got to go back.
The rook is pinned there, loose on C8. Yeah, you can't take on B5. So you have to take A takes B5, bishop takes, bishop B7, and oh dear, the whole position is falling apart there for black. And where to put the king? You get now there's going to be a check, and you have to give up the rook.
Yeah, unbelievably precise play, not just content with winning a pawn, but now the rook is pinned. And if we can go for a ChessKid expression, we say put PP on the PP. It is literally what kids come up to me and say to me in real life. And that is not anything other than put pressure on the pinned piece. If you make it clever, kids tend to remember it. So I'm expecting rook C1 in this position. There's quite a long pause, but no, Andy goes his own way and plays rook up to E6. I guess after rook over, the bishop was just going to come to D6. So he's going to win the exchange anyway, but this way he's going to take the rook, take the knight, take the pawn. And actually that move was so precise that Aaron Mendez, the defending under 13 champion, playing an older section this year, goes down in round one, and Andy takes care of business.
Yeah, there was virtually no move for black, which means that there's 2 games remaining in round one. Maybe we can take a look at Faustino Oro, as I saw the evaluation bar start to rise up very much in his favor.
Yes, he's our other sort of pre-tournament numerical favorite with that almost 3,300 Chess.com Blitz rating. And he actually, Fausti puts his rook on a square where it could be captured by the bishop. Okay, it gets captured belatedly, but the queen is much better here than the rook. Queen's much better than rook in most positions. And it looks like the 2 favorites have taken care of business in round one. Fausti does, in fact, beat Megan. Quick check of that final game, and it appears to be over. So unlike earlier today, white did well in the first round. Remember, black won 66% of the games in the morning. But here we see the 2 ratings favorites winning. And Tani and Rayo very evenly match IMs from USA, but Tani takes care of business. And again, no draws. We had 0 draws in 30 games, and that tradition of fighting chess continues.
Yeah, no draws. I mean, when we will see our first draw? I mean, that could be the big question of the day. And the second games, they are now in progress. Where should we go? So we have a C3 Sicilian there between Megan and Tani. We also, we have to go to the middle clash there between Faustino and Andy Woodward. Maybe we can go there and check out how it's
normally when someone plays the Sicilian, it's a young woman after my own heart. But this is the titanic clash of number 1 versus number 2. A battle of 2 players who played in Tata Steel this year. And here we go. Okay. Usually when you can get rid of that isolated D pawn, as black is about to do, then black has at least equalized. Okay, a little bit of pressure on the D pawn, but objectively it's supposed to be about equal. But Yovi, what do you see here in the early stages of this game?
Well, as you mentioned here, there's virtually no pawns in the center. There's just that tension between D and E pawn. And so that energy just transfers over to the pieces. And so now it's just a question of mobilizing them. So I'm thinking queen takes B2 is a big threat. So you have to go knight to A4. The white rooks, they need to be centralized on C1 and D1. And black also has to be doing stuff here, like bringing the pieces in. Bishop E6, rook goes to E8 and C8 as well. And it becomes a battle of who has the most purpose to their position. So now big choice here for black, what to do. Do you go knight takes E4? Just exchange a set of minor pieces, get rid of the central tension. But yes, you leave yourself with a weak pawn on C6. I think I would opt for that one as well. The evaluation pass is the most natural move. That was instinctively my choice. It wasn't necessarily the best. And the evaluation bar starts rising for Faustino.
Yeah, I was even wondering if you could take here and fork these 2 pieces while losing your knight on F6, but that's a little bit out of bounds at this point because the knight has indeed captured. And interestingly, I don't often look at the computer eval, but it wants to give up the bishop not the knight. And I think we can see why. If the knight lands on e4, then the knight's hopping into f6, and those are going to be some mortally weak dark squares, or at least it's going to occupy a lot of your defensive effort for the rest of the game. So what do we do? I mean, if we take the knight first and then take, it's essentially the same thing. You're still getting those very, very weak dark squares. I guess you could have the knight take and play f5 to cover f6. I don't know if it's good. You are, got some weak queenside pawns, but there's a problem on f6. We know that.
Yeah, there's a problem on f6, as you mentioned. And I think the thing that's going to be troubling Black is the bishop coming to f6 and making that trade, and then the queen and knight are going to dance around the dark squares. And so this is why you were seeing bishop to f5, because if a knight comes to f6, you can just simply slide over with the king to h8 and then play around that piece, pretend it doesn't exist. But it's a good defense, I think, from Andy. So for Faustino, he has to find a way to kind of just exert the pressure. Maybe he can still go knight to f6 and then kind of slide the queen over to protect. But I mean, it's not an easy position at all.
Yep, if the queen does get to h4 with the king on h8, that will provoke some sort of pawn weakness for Black, probably pawn to h5, but even that's a little loose after g4. So queen g3 is the move that's the most threatening. Now, queen g3, if we take this pawn to pressurize the knight, the queen can still come to h4 because she very sneakily defends the knight. I wonder if there's a move h6, but then we have bishop takes, queen takes, bishop back. I don't know. There are some problems for Black to solve. Now, the queen went up instead of sideways. It probably matters not, as your countryman Shakespeare would say, Yovi. But this queen is getting to h4, and Black's got some problems to solve. Luckily, Black has a little bit of a time advantage, but we're going to see Andy's defensive prowess. He was the Chess.com puzzle champion in 2025 for a reason, and now it's got a defensive puzzle he's got to solve.
Yeah, and queen h4 is such a horrible idea, threatening checkmate in one. G4 is going to come up and just blast the pawn structure if Black ever posts up a pawn on h5. So how to defend? And
okay, I've got an idea. If you can allow me to interrupt here, I'm going to make a move on the board that was kind of my suggestion. So take this pawn, okay? I know it looks crazy, and it looks like we're going out of bounds. We're actually pressuring the knight. The pressure on the knight's more important than the pawn. When the queen comes over, I had this h6 idea, but what I forgot is that after bishop takes, you don't take with the queen because of bishop back, but you take with the bishop, and amazingly, there's no great discovered attack. The bishop comes back, you guard the bishop, and if check, you actually run away, and somehow Black survives. It's unbelievable, but it's possible. I'm not saying that White has to go into that. Let's get back to our live position here. And when we do, we see the pawn came to h5, which was more natural. He's not taking on b2. It felt loose to take on b2.
Yeah, if it did feel very gutsy, I'm going to say, to take on b2. But I did like the idea. And h5, and now this is the whole thing, can White get away with your g4? I mean, it's like the most direct way to put pressure on the Black position, and or do you just want to slide in with the rooks, centralize? G4 played. That was the most cutthroat move.
Fausti's surname means gold in Spanish. I was going to bet $5,000 in gold, which, by the way, is only 1 ounce, that he was going to play g4. I mean, there's just no way you play queen h4 and don't follow up with g4. So we see g4. The Black pieces are going backward, and White is sneaking in the position. And apparently the computer, they've ruined the surprise. Thank you, computer, by putting that blue arrow. The blue arrow means the best move by far, and it's rook on a to d1. And it was found by Fausti, putting PP on the PP. There it is. Pressure on the pinned piece. Pawn to c5. Now we take the rook. Okay. Let's see if White can still invade, though.
Yeah, White is simply going to take the pawn on h5. That's what they've been setting themselves up to do. And is there some rook g8 nasties? I don't quite believe it. And okay, well, here White just has to maintain control, and they're on their final seconds, Mike.
Yeah, 97, very accurate. Any bishop move can be answered by queen takes rook mate. So completely fascinating chess here. This is a titanic battle to start out, and White seems to be converting, especially if White gets a rook to g3. I think all the threats are over now that the rook's on g3. There's no Arabian mate on g8 just yet. The knight goes back to g6, cutting off the queen's protection of the bishop. What a fantastic idea. The king has to walk onto the g file, and amazingly, the queen steps back. So the Black king is surviving for the moment. 4 seconds, 1 second for Andy, who loves 10-second chess. Now he's only got 2 seconds for the whole game.
Yeah, and I love the way that Fausti is just using the geometry to start invading. And there's a checkmate on g6 with the queen. So Faustino wins. What a game!
A wry
Beautiful chess
smile.
there.
Yeah, wry smile from Andy. He's not even that upset he lost such a fascinating game. There we see the results. White again wins 2 out of 3. Aaron Mendez gets on the board, the youngest IM ever from Canada. And Tani is 2-0. I think that means that Tani and Fausti are leading our event. There we see Tani and Fausti are leading a pair of IMs. Andy and Aaron tied for second. Megan and Ryo trying to get on the board. But I love how fast this comes. In fact, I bet round 3 is going to start before I finish this sentence, especially if I make this a run-on sentence. Okay. Actually, I was kind of right. I think I see Andy's knight f3 on the board as soon as I finish my sentence.
Yeah, you won that bet there. So okay, we're going to see. So Tani there on 2 out of 2 plays white. He's the London system. And Aaron Meadows, he did lose his first game, but a strike back. And we're seeing a Lopez from Faustino and from Andy Woodward. Well, it's some kind of Fianchetto system. Mike, take your pick.
Let's show Tani some love. I mean, after all, he is a published author. My name is Tani, and I believe in miracles. Go pick up your copy. So far, it's been good chess, not miracles. He's 2 out of 2. So we're going to jump right in to Tani's game. If you don't know the story of Tani, it is one of the most inspiring in chess. They were refugees, his family living in a homeless shelter. He joined up with his chess club, Impact Coaching Network, gave him a free scholarship. And you know what? He actually did so many puzzles on ChessKid that his coach looked at the data and said, who is this kid doing so many puzzles on ChessKid? And that's one of the ways that he stood out. They got him some extra coaching. He became New York State K3 champion. The rest, as they say, is history. Go pick up the book if you want to read that history. But he is now at a fantastic prep school in New York. And in fact, his school won the high school championship last year, Columbia Grammar. Shout out to them. By the way, fun fact, Tani and Megan are teammates, even though they're like 5 years apart, because Megan plays up into the high school section to get extra challenge. Okay, enough biography. Let's talk about the London. This is like a more traditional London setup. So Yovi, hopefully you can impart some knowledge here.
Yeah, here I was looking at it, kind of went into some kind of Grunfeld Slav there from black, and white continued with this pawn structure, pawn pushes, with something I call the big clamp, which is when you get c5 in, and the whole idea is just to overrun the queen side, take as much space as possible. Primarily, you go b5, a4 is going to come, and once you create that weakness, that open line, you start to infiltrate with the heavy pieces. And black's only break, which is to go e5, really isn't that big of a deal, because there you just drop back with the bishop and you maintain that tension in the center. And now black is going to be forced to go on the defensive on the queen side. So here you're going to see castles, you're going to see a rook come to a1. There's going to be a lot of First, there's going to be doubling on the A line before white even thinks about going A takes B5.
I was actually seriously wondering when the bishop was back on C8 if white could take, and then play bishop takes and get the knight to B5, because knight C7 was pretty evil threat. However, as I often tell my students, if you can get a great position without sacrificing, why not do the risk-free solution? And if Ryo Chen is the same kind of economics thought process that I am, he will also agree with me when it comes to finance. This is a no-risk way of getting a good position because white just has the advantage of the space over there on the queen side. Let's involve our chat a little bit while we're watching this game. We asked each player who is their favorite player. And so I'm going to ask you, what was Aaron Mendez's response? Who is Aaron Mendez's favorite player? But I'm going to give you a hint. Think about the linguistics nature of Aaron's country. That is your small hint, okay? I wouldn't just leave you in the dark. You got a pretty good hint there. Who is Aaron Mendez's favorite player? Chat. First person to say it gets their name announced on the air. The knight goes back to a2, and it looks like if the knight takes, oh baby, there's going to be a passed pawn somehow on c5 marching down the board very quickly.
Yes, and it's going to be problem central. And guess what? Well, he had the chance to actually go b6 and get himself a protected pass pawn. He chose not to do that, just biding the time, going for the b pawn. And yeah, it's an interesting decision. He has perhaps this idea of just simply going first up b6, knight takes pawn, and is not afraid of allowing a queen for 2 rooks piece trade. And so knight jumps into e4. Why not take the pawn? Why not be greedy?
I kind of agree. He did take it. By the way, queen versus 2 rooks is one of the hardest things in chess to teach because it's almost a 50-50. And if you don't believe me, there was once an 8-hour world championship game that was queen versus two rooks. Shout out to Dubai 2021. So it was one of the hardest ChessKid videos I ever recorded because it's so hard to give you an exact rule or anything in that position. But with that passed B pawn, I think that might have favored the white pieces. But anyway, that is water under the bridge because white took with the queen. So there's no chance for this queen to trade for two rooks, at least not yet. Oh, we have a sacrifice on c5. That feels like a desperation sacrifice, but there are some problems on this rook. Keep an eye on that.
Yeah, and I wonder whether this comes as a surprise for Tani, because that kind of sacrifice kind of hits you out of nowhere. And we're seeing knight to b4, only move in the position. Because I think it's very natural to kind of go bc6, just a trade, but instead knight to b4, just piling on the pressure. And b takes d6, and with that, the evaluation bar starts going down.
But he finds right idea. He does not take the knight and have his rook get captured because he probably would have lost the pinned knight on a2. So both players saw that, which is why white has gone for this line. Now, eventually the rook is going to move and the knight's going to hang. You could even consider moves like rook takes bishop, followed by pawn takes. It's a thought. Is it the best idea? Maybe not. Maybe there's other good ideas.
It's a tempting one as well, especially when you're under the minute. You're thinking, hang on a second, how can I make life easy for myself? And getting those two pieces for the rook. But instead attacking, this rook on e8, rook to d8 is a nice move. The rook didn't have too many squares. Where else now? What is going to be the continue? Rook a7 with pearl on the pressure, just attacking the e-pawn. It's also possible to jump in with the knight to c6. Try and get the bishop pair.
And a quick
white
shout
definitely
out
has
to
the advantage. Yeah.
Just Have Fun in the Twitch chat understood the hint to my question. Canada is a francophone country, and Just Have Fun said it's either Ali Rays or MVL. I'm going to give you credit because you understood the nature of my hint. It is MVL. MVL would shine in a position like this. He loves crazy complications, and that's what we have here. Although Tani is getting the best of all these complications. Pretty funny how he's just left the knight there for a million years, but it was finally time to capture the knight, and now it looks like an extra piece, a clean extra piece, now an extra pawn. More time. Tani looks to go to 3-0. His best start ever in this event. By the way, his final year of eligibility. And Tani, south of the border, takes care of his north of the border friend Aaron with a win. 3-0 for Tani.
But take a look at what's happening in the other games, because it looks like Faustino Ora is in big trouble against Ryo Chen, and Andy Woodward was in big trouble as well against Megan Paragua and Noel. It was a complicated position, and the tide is now shifted into Andy's favor. We kind of said it. There was no easy games in this particular event, and for Faustino, it's very, very dangerous with a pawn on c7, just about to
He's
promote.
just about to experience his first loss of the tournament if white can convert. White's got a lot more time. White has that incredibly strong pawn, as you said. White has more rooks on the board. What's not to like? But the conversion is still not there yet. Knights are tricky, but they're quite passive at the moment. In fact, looks like there's going to be a mate on the black king if the black king is not careful. Let's see how Ryo might be able to convert this. Remember, he's won a very similar ChessKid event in 2020 and 2021. He was the winner our first 2 years that we call this event the ChessKid Speed Chess Championship. He converts his C-pawn to an A-pawn, still winning, but Fausti has alligator blood and is hanging around for just a little bit longer. Pawns are starting to fall.
Yeah, he's coming up with some remarkable defense. Now the disadvantage, okay, it's lost, but it's not as bad as it used to be. And that's going to be giving Faustino some hope, but there's now a pass pawn on a7. So this should be good enough for white to simply play some accurate moves. And with that check, he's about to win the knight. And Faustino with his first loss, and Ryo getting onto the scoreboard with that win. Very important for the standings. And we can see.
Third round in a row that white won 2 out of 3. Megan almost pulled the upset there. I think we've got, there we go. There's the correct one. Actually, white won all 3. Megan almost pulled the upset against Andy Woodward, but Andy survived after that opening loss, just like Yuj, by the way, to win, I think, 2 games in a row, if I have my facts correct. And there we see the standings. Tani 3-0, looking good. Fausti, fresh off his near fourth GM norm, is 2 out of 3. Andy, the pre-tournament classical ELO rating favorite on 2 out of 3. Aaron and Ryo have won. Megan's put up some good fights. I fully expect her to score some points later in the event.
Yes, I certainly expect her to actually just get in a few surprises here and there. Don't underestimate her whatsoever. And talking about someone else, someone female who you should never ever underestimate, it is the legend, the queen of chess, Judith, because you can face Grandmaster Judith Polgar, the strongest woman in history and one of the most influential players the game has ever seen, in her match against the world. We're now deep in the middle game, and Polgar, you guessed it, she's on the attack. Can you help the world defend? Join the battle with tens of thousands of players against one of chess all-time greats and use command play Judith in the chat. That's play Judith in the chat. And if you want to learn more about the legend herself, check out her brand new documentary, Queen of Chess, which is now streaming on Netflix. And on that note, we are going to go on a short break, and my return is going to be more of that quickfire action. See you in a bit.
It's important to play like knight a5. I think I'll just put it on my board, and it's like this. This is also a very sharp lines, especially for beginners. And black need to play this because attack. And here you cannot go this move because of this move. Because this is attack with queens and rooks. If you play this, you can take, but after queen f3, then you can take back with this. Then after that, your king is moved, and also white is a pawn up. So this is a famous trap for the beginners. And also, it's important to play like knight a5. That I think for many teachers, for a beginner for chess player, they will teach cannot play this move.
All right, we're here with the world's youngest ever WIM, Bodhana Sivanandan. I'm on her territory here live in London, and you're playing the ChessKid Youth Championship, and I'm going to be your warm-up act. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, 5 minutes, no increment. Good luck. Our first ever game, by the way. I think I'm a little bit more nervous. Okay, the big question is, how much do I talk and how much do I move? You're playing like a 45-year-old grandmaster, and that's a compliment. Okay, slowly taking over the position. So you're keeping the tension.
I don't know what else to do here.
Yeah, this is like who blinks first. Let's go there. All right. You're not letting me have any fun. All right, it's time to start capturing stuff. I got her pawn. So we're in the game now. Now there is a small danger playing me. You know what that is, right?
No.
This could turn into a ChessKid video at any moment. All right, now, do you think I should play knight f4 and sacrifice a pawn for the dark square?
I wouldn't, but I don't know.
You're supposed to use, like, reverse logic. It's a good move. It's a good move, Fun Master. So even if I don't win, if I get her down to 2 minutes, that's a moral victory.
2 minutes?
Hey, I gotta take the wins where I can get them. Yeah, your knight doesn't have a lot of natural homes, unfortunately for you.
I'll find one.
It's probably equal. Probably.
Okay, so now I'm considering f4, but I don't like it.
Old truth bomb, didn't see f4. Kind of glad that it's not losing by me.
Don't like how I got myself into this.
I don't know, I might rather have your position with the extra 45 seconds. Almost got her down to 2 minutes. Moral victory coming up. Trying to get a little revenge. She beat my boss yesterday, so...
Totally random.
I feel like trading everything, going to a king and pawn in game, but then if I lose the king and pawn in game, like half my videos on YouTube are going to be thrown in the garbage because all I talk about is endgames. If I go here, do I lose? Okay. I found another non-losing move.
That's your aim?
I might have to do something that I never do, which is stop talking. Never before seen on camera.
Would you go into the king and pawn in game now, though?
I think I have to if you play that certain move. 30 seconds and I'm an old man.
It isn't as good as I expected it to be, I have to admit. I don't think I'm winning.
10 seconds. Okay. Woo! I had 8 seconds left and my brain went blank, but I don't think I'm winning.
I don't think I'm...
I hope I've served as a good warm-up act for the ChessKid Youth Championship, and thanks for the game.
Thank you.
ChessKid is fun. Chess is great for the brain, but it's also fun to play. And ChessKid makes it easy to have fun. Whether your child is a total beginner or a prodigy, they can hop on and find a well-matched opponent from around the world at any time. ChessKid is the safe, parent-approved way for your child to play chess online. ChessKid is educational. To kids, it feels just like playing, but chess is a great way to learn patience, strategy, and critical thinking. ChessKid features a comprehensive training program that guides kids to level up on their way to mastery. There are more than 50,000 chess puzzles and a whole library of entertaining videos that teach strategies, tactics, openings, and endgames specifically for kids. ChessKid is easy. Whether you're a parent helping your child, a coach managing dozens of kids, or a school of hundreds. Signing up is free and easy, so what are you waiting for?
And we are back with round 4 of the ChessKid Youth Championship. And you know what? The stage is set, the tension is building, and the players, they are entertaining us with some exhilarating chess. Well, I think you've all caught our breaths for just a moment, but we are ready and settled in for more, as we have so far Tani Adewumi in the lead with a perfect 3-0.
That's right, the pride of New York City, representing up there Columbia Grammar School, Tani Adewumi, winner of the last 2 U.S. Cadet Champions. That is the top player under the age of 16 in the U.S., but our little tournament here is all about the top player under the 16 in the entire world. We had most of the Europeans and Asian players play earlier today. This is the Battle of the Americas. We've got 4 Americans, a Canadian, and an Argentinian, and we've got round 4 underway. There we see the games opening up. And you know what? If we can call a 13-year-old a veteran, Megan Paragua is a veteran. She's been playing in our events since I can remember for the last 5 or 6 years. Let's jump and show Megan some love and focus on her game on the far right there. We've got Rayo against Megan, Texas versus New York.
Yeah, I agree. Let's show this game some attention. And we're already seeing it began as a Sicilian, and it was black getting in a very early d5, throwing in a check, and now choices to be made. And tension is building against this bishop on d7. Is white just going to snatch that bishop with the knight and then just say, hey, bishop pair, that's good enough for me?
Yeah, it's a very rare line. In fact, if we just go back to move number 2 really quick, we can see here that black played knight f6 without ever playing d6. A very rare line because you allow the pawn to come to e5. So if you're wondering why this looks like an unconventional Sicilian, that is exactly the reason why. And let's see, white has in fact gotten the bishop pair. We'll just fast forward here. This bishop is not going to have the Noah's Ark trap because the pawn on d3 guards c4. So no need to hold your breath on that one. Just in case Rayo's parents are watching, Rayo's bishop is safe. And now we are at the live position. Yovi, take it away.
Yeah, it's a very interesting position. You know, the bishop on b3, it doesn't look an impressive piece at all, as is being held back by this wall of pawns, and also this pawn on e6 and f7, whereas black is still very active, but there is a pin in town, and that's something that black will have to extricate themselves from, either with the queen coming to c7, and now there's tension, now there's pressure against b5, so queen to b6. I think that on balance, I think black is doing very well. They have extra space, and also easier plan, you know, it's just a question of just mobilizing the rooks and just waiting for white to get on with doing something. Is it going to be a takes b5? Are we going to be seeing queen to f3? But that does invite the black knight to jump forward to e5. And sure enough, the queen does go to f3. But I wasn't sure about this move because I thought that there were some complications abound, perhaps with some kind of c4 followed by knight to e5. And yeah, well, it looks like I'm playing just like these exceptionally talented 13-year-olds, because c4 has been played, and now there's a lovely double attack against the bishop and the pawn on h2.
Yeah, didn't even bite on the poison pawn on b2. It probably wasn't poison. It's probably just that she found something a little bit sweeter. And that is, as you said, this double attack. The white king has been injured just a little bit. And I think all these queenside pawns are still going to be targeted later in the game. So Rayo does try to shake up the position a little bit here. But after the knight's trade, I think the pawns are going to start to fall. I see no reason why you shouldn't just capture on b2. This queen's in an awkward spot trying to guard all the bishops. And bishop here we usually love, but they're kind of operating independent of each other. Okay, so instead knight c5, I guess you could take the pawn later. There's no real harm in doing that. But the white's pieces look a little chaotic, a little disorganized.
They certainly do. And knight c5, I think, played just to prevent any future ideas of the bishop, setting up a queen and bishop battery, bishop to d3, threatening checkmate on h7. So very nice move. Queen to g4, I think, is a bit of a must. You know, you might as well try to threaten to initiate something, because black is just simply going to be taking on b2 and then just going back with the bishop. You don't even need to do that. You can also go rook to b8. Bishop c3 is also good enough.
Wait a second, though, Yogi,
yeah.
I'm sorry. If you play rook to b8, I'm going to take your bishop and play bishop f6. So there's a little bit of venom in the position. Yeah, and I was actually looking to sack the exchange anyway, but here I'm not even sure it's an exchange sack, because the bishop comes here threatening mate and the rook. So you've got to keep that dark squared bishop on the board and not even allow an exchange sacrifice, frankly, because bishop f6 is the real deal.
Yes. Okay, yeah, that's very nicely pointed out there by Mike. So you have to be a little bit careful when there's a queen and bishop sniffing around your king. And now the rook comes to d1. It's just ideas, you know, perhaps future to go rook to d3. And this is an interesting move. It's a very knee-jerk reaction, but it does create a weakness for white to target. The queen drops back, bishop takes e6 on the cards, and how to defend against that? I guess you just slide over the a rook, but then the pawn on a6 is hanging. So, yeah.
Exactly. I'd like to point out that white's star move was being worse and putting the queen on g4, because it literally gave black so many nerves that she felt compelled to play f5 and weaken her position. And by the way, if you want to know more about what to do when you're losing, I'm going to sell my own Chessable course. Hey, that's my own Chessable course. It's something, unfortunately, I've got too much experience in. Now, she could have played the Noah's Ark trap on the other side of the board and played the move g4. Now the opportunity is gone, because after f3, the bishop can drop back if needed. But there's still some problems converting this position. You've pointed out these pawn weaknesses. The king is starting to feel a little bit loose. We've lost control over the e4 square. There's some problems for black.
Yeah, there's definitely some problems, because once the bishops start mobilizing, then it's going to be very difficult to keep a handle on this position. So I can see there's even ideas of going rook takes bishop and then just going bishop to b4 or bishop to c3, just to get control over the dark squares. And let's not also forget that, yeah, bishop to b4. I mean, this battery that I was talking about earlier with the queen posting up to e4 and a bishop to d3, that is now going to be exceptionally dangerous with the black pawn on f5.
And you know what? The ChessKid video on that same subject was recorded by your countryman, Simon Williams, and you said it just the way he did. The battering ram, if I can borrow from Simon Williams. Simon, I owe you £5 for trying to impersonate you in a very terrible way, but that's exactly what white's trying to do. And don't forget, when you've got opposite colored bishops, the attacker is the favorite. Oh, but now instead of the battering ram, white goes for the same colored bishop in game, and Rayo says, I'm just going to try to win with my passed pawn, but the rooks double, the bishop's in danger. Don't sleep on this white king. He's still feeling a little bit loose to me, especially because his escape square's a dark square. Queen takes a big mistake.
Yeah, okay, but the rook is hanging on b8, and this is such a nice in-between move. And now you can just take that rook. And Megan will try, you know, she has bishop ideas of bishop to d4, but ultimately the black king is now so weak. You can't go bishop to d4 because of the queen posting up to e4, giving a check. And yeah, it's all gone wrong for Megan. So close, and yet so far away.
Yeah, she can't even get our bishop. She can't even maneuver around to guard g3 because all of these squares are covered by the white pieces. So she just needs to guard g3 with her bishop and give white something to worry about. She gets her bishop there, but how can her queen now maneuver to the h file? That's the big question. And I don't think white's going to let that happen. This queen has to go to a very sad square. Actually, rook takes pawn would have won the queen, but maybe this is an even better move. And Rayo takes a troublesome position and flips the script. Rayo goes to 2 points. Megan's still looking for her first win. We have one game in progress. So I want to jump there because we have Aaron on 1 point against Fausti on 2 points. The kings are scattering, but I count an extra rook for Aaron. Let's see if he can convert. He's got some dark square problems of his own.
Yeah, he certainly does. And Aaron, he wins. And Faustino, he's not happy, losing 2 games in a row. Certainly not what he set out to do. And this is the state of play after round 4. Win for Rayo and also Andy Woodward, who took down the tournament leader Tani. And here we can see the standings at the end of it. And we have a 2-way tie. We have that balance again. 2 people on 3, 2 people on 2, and Megan yet to score.
Right. In fact, we've already started the round 5 game, but Andy is playing the Yuj gambit. He dropped round 1, then he went on a string of wins to lead the tables just like Yuj did this morning. And let's see, we've got a lot of options here. You want to do Andy and Rayo, the Battle of Texas?
Yeah, let's take a look in on that battle and see how the 2, what do you say, statesmen? Are they countrymen? Are they...
I don't know that we have a term for that, but we're going to go with statesmen. In fact, I got a fun little trivia question here. They're both from Texas. And when we asked all the players, if you could change one rule about chess, what would you pick? They both independently picked the same thing, which is they wanted to get rid of the castling rule. Now, I know there's a type of chess with a certain name attached to this variant of chess, but I'm going to propose we rename it the Texas no two-step. Because there's a dance called the Texas two-step, and because we're disqualifying the king from moving 2 squares, I'm officially proposing that no castling chess be called the Texas no two-step. That's a bit of a mouthful. Chat, love it or hate it, let me know. Don't hold back. Let's go back to the chess game.
Yeah, I like it. Also reminds me of a variant that I used to play as a kid called shooting chess. And that one was a lot of fun. Okay, it didn't involve any guns, gotta say. It just involved that you just captured... you captured a piece without actually moving that piece. So for instance, in this particular game, white could just go knight takes d5. You just lift the knight off the board and you wouldn't move the knight from f3. Makes for a very exciting type of chess, but unfortunately, different type of chess, different kind of rules. And now here we're going to see that there's going to be some break in the center. And now this is the question: to take or not to take. If you're a streamer, you en passant immediately. If you don't, then the question is, well, what are you going to do with white's space advantage?
I need you to help me. C4 takes away the bishop's retreat square. What if we deftly put the bishop on G4 and then play A6? I guess F3 would have been the antidote, but man, white was really gambling by almost trapping his own bishop there. But apparently it doesn't work, and black makes the break in the center. This is called a lever or a lever, and the rook is going to open up on the F file.
Yeah, and this is one of those positions where optically white has a nice position, but it's very easy for black to play. You are just either going to be going f takes e4 and give yourself potentially a protected passed pawn on d4, or if you want, and you hold the tension that little bit longer, you can go f4, g5, and something that we call a pawn roller. And I personally love that particular plan, but black is the one who is spoilt for choice, whereas white, where are you going to go? Are you going to kind of continue with going b4? Are you going to resolve the tension? And you know what? White was worried, so they took first, and then they went b4.
Right, take first, ask questions later. I think it was the pawn roller that white was worried about. Now, white doesn't have quite as natural of a pawn break. C5 is not possible at the moment. B5 doesn't do a lot except give this knight an incredibly juicy outpost. The bishop is finding a hard time actually getting to a productive square. So seems like an easier game for black to play. The computer still likes white, but in a practical sense, I think black is just an easier color to play, especially in a blitz game. Both players have about the same amount of time on their clock. Now we see c5 happen. It's kind of a pawn sack, but if you take twice, bishop a3 is a little bit annoying. It's skewering all of black's pieces. So that's probably what white is gambling on. Also, this pawn is loose, so you've got to watch out for that. So I like this break. I think it was a timely break by Andy to finally give Rayo something to worry about. But undaunted, here we go, g4. All the lines are opening on the white king.
Yeah, and I mean, white perhaps was dreaming of making moves such as queen b3 check, taking on b7 and getting active, but g4, how do you like them apples? And suddenly that provokes a mistake, f4. And the question is like, what happens if you can just take it? Just take the pawn and then live to tail the tail. And sure enough, that's exactly what Rayo is doing. Queen is going to move. f3 is in the air. So Andy better have something very effective.
Yeah, I mean, he just played Tata Steel Challengers and won it, so obviously he's got the chops, but what does he have here? It keeps on looking incredibly scary. By the way, Yovi, you get 1 point for the 90s movie reference. Thank you for that Goodwill Hunting quote. And Yovi, it's not your fault. It's not your fault.
No, it's not my fault. No.
I'm not sure what's her fault. Okay, except the good analysis. Okay, the queen's about to come back to f7 because if this pawn gets captured, you might need to snap up the c pawn, but no, this is a man on a mission. Rayo does not care about the queen side. All Rayo wants to do is give checkmate. And you know what? He might just do it. This white king is looking denuded, a word that Irina Krush once taught me during a live interview. The king is absent of pawns guarding him. He is denuded, and there are checkmate threats coming on the g file, queen g6, queen g2 being the immediate problem.
Yeah, and the king was actually forced to go to f2 to act as a blockader to that pawn. And now, what would you know? The king isn't the best blockader because the rook to g2 is now a massive threat in the position. And how does one handle that? You can't go queen takes f3 because the rook will go back to where it came from with rook to f6. And whoopsie-daisy, the queen falls. So that's out of the question. Rook to g1 looks like another natural way to defend against this rook check. But then you have to calculate what's going to be happening after rook takes rook and maybe f2. And maybe white is getting away with some defense there. So it's not an easy position by any means.
The computer's only move to hold the balance is the absolutely ridiculous bishop to b2, which looks like you're putting your bishop literally on a square where the rook can come down and just threaten it. And it was found by Andy. I don't understand the move, but Andy is from the golden computer age of chess that kids all understand that I don't. And he finds it, and the rook comes in and makes a sacrifice. Okay, actually, sorry, just trades rooks. But now the queen's going to get to e2. I guess queen e4 only move, right? Yeah, only move.
Yeah, queen e4 only move, because otherwise if you move the king, f2 is coming on, the queen is going to land on e2, and that's going to be more or less curtains. Queen e4, and it's absolutely insane that this bishop to b2, and it was kind of holding the balance, but now these pawns are unstoppable, and Rayo wins. Oh, what a comeback from him, and Andy in big trouble.
Importantly, both those pawns were promoting on light squares. That's why the dark square bishop was unable to help. And here we have a technical draw, but we saw a technical draw not be a draw in our final game earlier this morning. Let's see if the rook and 2 can somehow win against the rook and 1. Aaron's going to try. He's going to play for 100 moves. Megan is trying to get on the board for the first time. Here's the important thing for all of you adult learners out there. If these 2 pawns make a pass pawn against this 1, the white king is already in front of the pawn. So black needs to somehow trade pawn for pawn and keep his king in front of the pawn. Usually that's impossible to accomplish all that. But, of course, black is going to try. Let's see if Megan can hold this endgame.
Yeah, and if she does, she will be the first person to successfully have held a draw. I mean, we've seen a lot of decisive games. Virtually every single game has been decisive. This would be the first draw. So, okay, the king is coming forward. It's getting harder and harder to defend, but Megan is finding some good defenses. Will she go rook to a2, check the king away? Yeah, this is a nice technique. And then just kind of keep that rook on a5.
And if the rooks trade, there was an opportunity for black to play rook e2 and interpose for a moment. If the rooks trade with this black king wandering, white can just play f4 and liquidate the pawn. So the rooks can't trade in such a way that the king is wandering. The king would have to be very close for a rook trade to give black any chances at all.
And now she can go your move, f4. That would trade off. But okay, this is still also very good The black king is cut off, and she has a lovely drawing mechanism where she attacks the pawns. And maybe now white is the one who is a touch better, although it's largely symbolic.
Yeah, but why not play for a win? I mean, there's not a lot of risk here. So in fact, she is playing for a win because she would just play f4 at some point when her rook was in the 4th rank if she wanted a draw. Now we're going to have a draw, and there we see it. 45 games in to the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championship. We have our first draw after 45 games. If you like fighting chess, this is the place to be. That was our first draw of the day.
Wow, 45 games. The facts don't lie. I mean, I was not expecting this at all. But it does mean, Mike, take a look at this in the standings. We have a 4-way tie for first place.
That's
Four
right.
players on 3 points.
Fausti rebounded from the loss to beat Tani, who was on a roll, and Andy lost again against Rayo, and that makes a massive log jam as we head into round 6, and I literally don't know where to go. So once again, International Women's Day is tomorrow, but it comes early for you, Yovi. You get to pick which game we go to because there's a lot of good choices.
There's certainly a lot of good choices. I'm very tempted by the game actually between Megan and Faustino. Looks like a very interesting, exciting Open Sicilian, and also Mendes Woodward. It looks like a little bit more of a slow burner, and between Tani and Rayo, again, that's a close position where white is looking to expand on the queen side. So I'm actually going to vote for Megan against Faustino.
All right, you get your way. After all, when do you see a rook on d7 early in the game? You are the first person in history to describe a Maroczy bind setup as exciting, but I knew what you meant. It's an unorthodox Maroczy bind setup. This rook is almost never on d7, but in the Maroczy bind, if you can get d5 in, you've essentially unbound yourself. And that is clearly what Fausti's trying to do. He's putting every single one of his army members. Can I call them army members? Do I sound like a 4-year-old? I may have been reading Chess for Babies. Shout out to Gotham Chess. I just sold you 10 books. Actually, you don't need my help. But this pawn is coming to d5 if black gets his way. And that would at least equalize for black if it ever happens.
Yeah, and it just goes to show what kind of style I had as a chess player, that I really find the Maroczy as a very exciting opening. I think I got very into it playing the white side of things. It was like, think of that pressure against d6. And the thing is, for black, if they break out, the tables will turn almost immediately. Black will be super active. They'll suddenly have a lot of targets. But if white keeps control, then everything goes in white's favor in return. So here, the queen has a choice. Can it snatch that pawn on b4? I think he got into trouble with some kind of potential attacks. So that's why instead it moves to c6. And now there's a question how to defend e4. Because if you do it via traditional ways with knight to d2, well, then suddenly there's going to be ideas. Actually, first up, you don't defend it. So
yeah. I think that black is actually getting a little bit more play than black usually gets. And I think I was also projecting. I had some bad losses growing up playing against the Maroczy bind simply because you can get yourself in such a position where you have almost no ideas. Even one of those Kasparov Deep Blue matches back in 2003, even Kasparov, I remember shuffling his pieces around. So it can be frustrating to play against. But black seems to have some targets here. This pawn, this knight, the rook's going to come in the game. I'm not saying black is better, but this is a lot more free than a lot of Maroczy bind positions are.
Right. Another big question is like knight to d2. It does invite black to capture that pawn on e4, right? And then the question is, actually, would that be a huge mistake? Because white could just flick in ideas such as b5. Ooh. And suddenly it's an overloaded piece. But no, that wasn't the intention, actually.
Let's go back, though, because I think this idea, these are easy moves to miss, these in-between moves. After pawn to b5, does the queen have somewhere to go to guard the knight, or is there a counterattack that I don't see? I'm actually a little bit puzzled as to what happens after b5. But anyway, let's just take a look at what happened here. We had knight takes, which is a question mark. And apparently f5, don't even take the knight back. Okay, let's see if Fausti finds this move. Of course, the knight can't move because the checkmate on g2. But you don't need to push an f-pawn. I think you can just take or something. Oh, okay. If you take and the queen takes and the bishop takes, there's the amazing knight to c5, taking advantage of the pawn being pinned, forking the rook and the knight. So it's a must find. f5 is a must find.
Yeah.
He's got 43 seconds. Will the Messi of chess play pawn to f5, or will he jump offside, to continue the soccer reference, and play queen takes, which would be a huge misstep. Oh, it's a yellow card on Fausti. Let's see if Megan finds it. Oh, she puts the knight on b6.
Oh, she misses
if she plays
it.
knight c5, she's better.
Yeah, well, she goes knight to b6. And I can see why, because you do pick up the a6 pawn at the end of it, and it's very, very tempting. But yeah, what a golden opportunity it was for Megan to fork both the rook and the knight. But now this is almost anyone's game here, as white is now going to start to push back the black pieces first and then start just advancing the queen side.
Golden opportunity, but it could have been a golden goal. Sorry to, hammer that metaphor more. You know what's probably as important as anything is her extra minute. The extra minute here feels every bit as important as her passed B pawn. Now the pawns are targeted. She's got to still step a little bit carefully. But I'm a big fan of simplifying here. I think I would double rooks and play rook a8 or something, just to relieve some of the pressure on my queenside pieces. But she goes for it right away with pawn to c5. Rook over, okay. And now here, if you step back with the bishop, you pin the pawn. Or, yeah, she just steps back with the bishop. Looks like a pretty smart idea.
It certainly does. You can't take on c5 because rook takes rook. And after all the recaptures, rook a8 would be winning. But rook a8, the blue arrow, saying that this is a fantastic move. That's a very difficult move to kind of spot, because why would you swap off your most active piece? So instead, Fausti, I still think, is in a spot of bother, because it's not easy when you just have seconds left on the clock to deal with the advancing c pawn. Now, white has to be a little bit careful, because rook to d1 is going to come with deadly effect if you don't make luft for the king.
And if your king goes to f1, there's bishop d3 forking your king and rook. If you play g3, bishop h3 is a problem. If you play h3, bishop c7 is a problem. It actually wasn't easy to make luft. Every single normal luft move was a problem. So I've got 99 luft balloon problems. Okay, that was terrible. That's not going to work. Can we edit that? Oh, we're live? Okay, let's go back to our game. Opposite colored bishops, but again, passed c pawn gives her the better chances. Her 22 seconds extra time give her the better advantage, but Fausti keeps hanging around.
Yeah, Fausti's quick. So somehow he's going to be in his element with just seconds left on the clock. Well, but there's a pass pawn one square away from queening. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn is simply going to allow, yes, and now rook takes. G2 is in the air, so not easy. Fausti fighting hard.
You have to lose the pawn. She plays king up, so rook takes becomes a non-checking move. So objectively equal, but now the pawn on c7 is... I actually don't even know what color I'd rather be, because I want the passed c pawn, but black technically has an extra pawn. There are some dangers of that bishop getting attacked with rook to d8. But as long as the rook and the bishop keep an eye on c8, there's no way that white can get a second defender of the c8 square. And black actually I think black's trying to win this still.
Definitely, because Megan, on more than one occasion, actually offered to trade off rooks. And now with these double two pass pawns, is going to be simply marching them down. You can throw in a check. That's what she does. You can throw in another check on c2.
She might want to play bishop
this is
d2
a nice getaway. Bishop d2.
Yeah, get rid of the c pawn. I know it's hard to do, but both those black pawns are on dark squares. They're not going to remain on the dark squares for too much longer, though. That's why I might pitch the c pawn. But now see, the pawns have gotten to safer squares. Her king's in big trouble. She's no longer ahead on the clock. Let's see if she can still eke out a draw here. The promotion square is a light square, and she has to give up the ghost. What a comeback from the Messi of chess. She puts her hand over her mouth. Yeah, this is tough. She played the under 13 last year, but it is so tough in this under 16. Keep in mind, she's still eligible to play in this tournament for like 3 more years. Okay, so I'm super happy that she's here playing today, and she is on the board. But there's the total leaderboard. Tani recovers. I think he lost in the last round, but he won this one. Fausti recovers. They're on 4, and I think Andy lost his second in a row. It is a 5-way race. Remember, the top 2 are the only ones that advance, and there's 5 people who still have a legitimate chance of being able to advance.
Yeah, and take a look at that. Faustino or Tani Adewumi there on 4 points, and so many people in with a shot. Ooh, this is exciting. Can you imagine, Mike, what it's like for all of our players, friends and families watching this? They must be holding on to the edge of their seats, cheering on their players. This is exhilarating stuff. And talking about friends and family, well, we are introducing the Friends and Family plan for Chess.com. With your bundled purchase, unlock 6 diamond memberships for up to 70% off the standard price. That means you can share all the perks like unlimited game reviews and puzzles with everyone you care about. Prices vary depending on your country, so visit go.chess.com/family or use !family in chat for more information. And with that, we are going to go on a very short break. When we return, it is going to be all fire on the board as we return back to the action.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying my best to practice a little bit. I mean, seems like lots of other players are practicing a lot as well. And I don't know, it seems like a really strong field this year. Lots of improving, strong blitz players. So yeah, it'll be fun. I don't have any expectations in general, but I'll just try to have fun and play good chess. I guess last year, I probably just did lots of simple tactics. Probably played a couple blitz and bullet games before, just warm up my brain, see some patterns and stuff. I didn't do anything special, but I guess I was just kind of, maybe I looked at a bit of because I've played quite a few matches against some of them, so I guess I have a bit of a general feel for how they play. So I guess I just kind of thought a little bit about how I want to try to steal the game a little bit, but in general, nothing special. Regarding Faustino and Oldogmas, I guess in general, they're both very great calculators. Their calculation is probably very, very accurate and fast. So I guess that's probably one of their biggest strengths, and they also have deep opening knowledge. So I guess I don't really have any advantages over them, I think. I just have to try to get a game where I can play more comfortable. But in general, they're both very, very solid and tactical players. I guess looking at the field, probably, I guess I didn't look too closely at it, but I did notice some standout names like Sina Movahead and Ryo-Chen. I feel like their ratings are both 3150 to 3200 plus rating range, as well as this Sergei Skoklin or something. He's also 3100 plus consistently. So I think in general, basically the whole entire field is very, very strong this year. So anything can happen. So yeah, I'm excited to see how they can play and how I can play.
But this exact position, I'm sure I've had as a kid. So one of the early kind of serious ones that I learned, and this was kind of topical at the time, which started in the Italian, and then here, and then knight g5, which attacks f7, which is if you're kind of new to chess, then you probably immediately think why can't I just attack that pawn and take it, and then I'll attack the queen and the rook and so on. The only way for black to kind of avoid that is to play d5, which is the best move. And then white takes a pawn, and the big question is always why can't black take back? Which you can, of course. It's not, you don't lose immediately or anything. But the usual point of this, which is called the fried liver, is that now white sacrifices a knight. Black takes, otherwise black's just losing everything. And then we give a check here, which not only gives a check, but also attacks the knight. And most people who are kind of new to chess, they're already totally unsure of what to do with black here, because they move their king back, and then you take here, and you're up a pawn for nothing. Or even worse for them, sometimes they go here, and then not only are you up a pawn, but you're checkmating. And the knight can't go anywhere because of the pin. So the only possible good move, which is not even so bad, is king to e6, and then you're up a piece, but you have this like serious pin, which lasts a really long time. And this is kind of like an opening trap called the fried liver. It, I think, ends up being not the worst opening trap to fall into with black, because you can kind of hang on to your knight and hope for the best with your king on e6. But this was like one of the really topical openings as a kid for me.
We are back with our final stretch of the Group B here at the ChessKid Youth Championship. 4 rounds remaining, 4 players all in with a chance, and still anything can happen. Take a look at the standings. I mean, Mike, if you had said to me at the start of the day that Andy Wood would be there in 5th place, I would have said no way. He is the favorite, the only Grandmaster, but wow, here we have it.
If you'd have told me to start the day, we'd have 5 players going to our final section, all within 1 point, then I'd have to borrow the immortal words of Jimmy Connors. This is what they paid for. This is what they want. This is literally why you showed up to watch this event today, because we do not know what's going to happen. And by the way, Megan only has a half point, but she was beating the top 2 rated players. She was beating both Fausti and Andy. So she's got the chance to play the role of spoiler. And I can't wait to see how it's going to finish out. There are no locks for playing on Sunday. Nobody has punched their ticket yet, but I suggest we look at the top 2 rated players, Andy versus Fausti. We're going to go ahead and jump because that is the battle we want to see. And it is a Catalan. Okay, why not?
Why not? Catalan, it is a tried and tested and beloved opening of all Grandmasters out there. So White is going for a small positional edge based on the presence of that long bishop, the bishop on the light squared there on g2, which is going to exert a lot of pressure on the queen side. And here it's just a question of whether black can actually neutralize that. Normally you want to be going for, maybe we can hop into the position itself, because I can see the moves coming fast and furious in the other games. But it does seem to have caused, White's last move does seem to have caused Fausti to actually stop and take a pause. You know, normally White is simply going queen takes c4, but there's a b4 square that black can post up a piece. And for White is really all about just making the right trades, maybe going h2, h4, and just utilizing the presence of this bishop on g2, just cutting the board in half. And the key to the Catalan as black is if you manage to get the bishop to b7, you tend to be in ship shape condition. If you don't, then you tend to be suffering. And here White has the center, pawns on e4, d4. What you do here is you usually just enjoy that space. So you don't play anything committal. You don't go d5 or e5. You just simply develop your pieces. So knight jumping into e5. And the question for black is, where's the breakout? Where's the path to connect the rooks? Not an easy task.
Yeah, very good analysis, Yobi. The queen doesn't even have a way to step off of the back row. And your analysis of these center pawns is probably the most important one for most of our viewers. We call that the snowplow in ChessKid. And the minute you push one pawn, you actually weaken both pawns because neither of them tends to be able to advance once you push one. So it's a very timely push. You've got to get very good at knowing when is the right moment. Of course, if you make a fork or something, the moment becomes easier. But for right now, the threat is stronger than the execution. And finally, black gets to put a little bit of a chink in the armor by playing pawn to c5 and to try to take one of those wheels off the snowplow. And now pawn to b5. Wow. Okay. Incredibly aggressive play by Fausti.
Yeah, and also really provocative because the question is like, can white not just steal a pawn there on a5? Is there something amiss if you do that? And remember, there's tension against this pawn on d4 as well. C takes d4, always in the air. So what is the big idea? And actually, we'll find out because knight takes a5 being played. There's been a trade in the center. But what is Faustino's idea? Okay, so he wants to, as Mike's highlighting, grab that pawn on a4, but can you really get away with that?
It's a very awkward construction of pieces. If you can get away with it, not only do you recover your pawn, but your queen finally gets off the back row and you finally connect your rooks. So it must be the main idea. Computer still says that white is much better. Ooh, knight c6. Look at this clever move. Winning a tempo on the rook and disconnecting the queen's protection of the pawn. Also, the knight is just kind of a terror that deep in the heart of Texas. So yeah, Andy's knight is doing some good things there. That was a very nice in-between move. In-between moves, I feel like, are the easiest to miss in blitz chess or even in classical. And this is the move that has given Andy the advantage.
Yeah, some big threats as well. Knight takes bishop in the air, followed by bishop to c5, setting up a skewer against the queen and rook. You now, at the very least, you can just take it and pick up that pawn on a4. That's something that you can be looking at. You can try to maximize and go for more.
Yeah, I think that white will pick up the exchange, but Andy presented Fausti with such problems, he's gained a minute on the clock. So he has the luxury here of deciding what he wants to do. I think taking the bishop first is pretty much the only idea. Then you get to decide between bishop c5 and pawn take. So maybe this is the classic Hikaru. You don't play the first move of a combination until you've got the second move ready. So that's kind of a nice idea that I learned from Hikaru when it comes to blitz and bullet. So he's not going to take the bishop until he's got his second move ready. And I think that's what he's deciding on now. He's not deciding on the first move. He's deciding on the second move. Oh, I'm completely wrong. Okay, never mind. Forget everything I said. Bishop takes f6.
No, yeah, it was complicated because Black did have that possibility at the end to capture the pawn on b3, and maybe he was assessing this. But this, it wasn't on my radar, but it looks very good. Suddenly, the queen is targeting two bishops, and you can go queen takes bishop yourself.
You can. I'm still worried at the end of a lot of trades here that this pawn will take and the pawn will become a menace. Even if white wins two minor pieces for the rook, it should still be better. I do love this idea. That's why, of course, he was the 2025 Chess.com puzzle champion. I actually don't even know if he was able to defend his title this year. He might have been playing in Tata, but we're going to get in that
He has
line.
this really sick move. Queen takes rook here. I don't know whether it works. Queen takes rook. And the whole idea is after queen takes rook, yeah, you give a fork, and then you do have b takes a4 at the end of the day. And the bishop on g2, it's been sleeping for a long time, but it does control the queening square on a8.
Okay, instead of that very complicated line, he plays the somewhat more simple line. Oh, he plays it this time. It's actually better this time because instead of the rook taking and guarding the bishop, the white rook's on c1. And so queen takes queen, knight e7 would be up two minor pieces. And this still looks good. Queen takes queen, knight e7. White will end up with an extra bishop at the end of all the complications. And so Fausti has to throw in the towel. That game did a lot to help out clarification of the leaderboard. We're going to very quickly jump to two teammates playing. It's Columbia Grammar Prep School versus Columbia Grammar Prep School. Tani is the older player, but both have a ton of experience in ChessKid events. And Tani is better, but he's got 4 seconds and his king has never moved. His king side has never moved. He's got to survive this position.
Yeah, he's a piece to the good for his troubles, but like you say, that deficit on the clock is going to count for something, and especially with a shaky king. So Megan just making sure that absolutely everything is defended. And Tani, it's not going to be easy for him. So now this is the move that I was thinking about. If you can get motoring f5, e5, e4, okay, there goes a pawn. But Tani's been so quick. And with such purpose as well. He doesn't seem phased at all.
You know, it surprised me because I didn't think Tani played a lot on Chess.com. He's actually played the most blitz games on Chess.com of anybody, almost 50,000 games. And Tani is able to win against his teammate with only seconds. He somehow won that position, which is mind-boggling. A checkmate on g7. We've got one game still in progress. It is totally level, but I see the black king on g5, and I'm thinking, I don't want to be black. Queen d1, though, apparently holds the balance.
Yeah, queen to d1 holds the balance. Yeah, that is a move that wasn't expected. But okay, rook to d7, and now what about moving the rook all the way back? No, but this is also very, very good. And the black king, ironically enough, is very safe up there on g5, surrounded by its pawns.
I thought someone was going to get mated. Instead, we have a rook in pawn endgame. Whoa, rook d2, hoping for a pre-move. I think that was a cheeky idea where white knew that he was lost and he tried rook d2 thinking that black may have pre-move, but that trick didn't work. No reindeer games today. Aaron Mendez, our defending under 13 champion, wins, and let's take a look at the leaderboard. That was an incredibly important round, as you might expect, as we close in on the finish. Got 3 rounds to go in this double round robin, and Tommy jumps out to the lead after beating his teammate Aaron, winning that queen and rook endgame, goes to 4.5. Andy jumps back to the top half of the leaderboard, and Fausti is still there at 4. And without any break at all, we are into round 8. And I think every game matters. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to stay tuned in. Literally every game has a leader playing in it.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, there are 3 games remaining. So even someone like Rio, who's on 3 points, with 3 wins, he could suddenly find himself in a tiebreak, fighting for those coveted 2 spots that gets us into tomorrow's semi-finals. So let's take a look. Where do we want to go to, Mike? There is action happening. I'm seeing in Megan game, Andy has got the bishop out to h3. Won't stay there for too long. The bishop does need to move, but that's looking very interesting. Also between Mendes and Tani, that one is a little bit more developed, but it's going to be whether white's control over the c line will offset the structural weakness of the d pawn, and then we have I wouldn't say chaos, but I would just say tension between Faustino and Ryo Chen.
I could go anywhere, but let's go right to the middle of the screen. I'd love to see some Aaron Mendez versus Tani Adewume action. We're jumping right to the middle. There are a ton of pieces on the queen side, but Tani has been at the top of the tables for most of the day, so it feels natural to take a look at one more of his games. And after knight c4, Tani's queen's in danger, so he makes a trade. And I generally was told, and I'm not sure if this is actually proper advice, but when you're playing with the isolated queen pawn, you want to keep at least 3 minor pieces on the board because you want to be the attacker. Look at how few minor pieces are on the board. The more trades that happen, the more that pawn becomes a liability. And one of the number 1 rules that I teach is an isolated queen pawn loves to push. So physically blockading with the piece is the way to go. I could see white throwing this pawn up the board even as a sacrifice, and after takes, putting both rooks on the d file to try to win it back. So we'll see if any of those ideas are in play here. But notice that black is not physically blockading the pawn, and you can see white's not hiding the intentions. White's going to play d5 if he gets the chance.
Yes, and one of the things that is in white's favor is that white does have control over the c line, and usually that's enough to kind of hold the balance. So if you're able to post up a rook to c7, you can also jettison the pawn on d4. But Aaron has gone for defense, holding on to that pawn. But I agree with you. I think what we're going to be seeing is white grimly holding on. And unfortunately, I feel like this is perhaps a step towards passivity. And this is going to definitely be favoring Tani, who is currently in the lead with 5 points.
He absolutely is in the lead. And that means that, when you start to get a big number, you start thinking about, okay, how many more do I need to qualify? And just a reminder that if you get to 6.5, you're almost certainly going to qualify. It's not a guarantee. 7 is basically a guarantee. If you get to 5.5 for 6, you are really rolling the dice because the tie breaks could end up not going your way. But Tani's already on 5. So he may think, a draw is black. Actually, 3 draws almost certainly gets him in, would be my guess. Probably no worse than actually a physical tiebreak, a 3+1 tiebreak. So he may already starting to be thinking about the number that he needs. But again, we've had so few draws today that it's not even, it's not likely unless the draw gods somehow wake up.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing too many draws. I mean, we've started as we mean to continue, and that is with decisive games all round. And he's been offered a trade of queens. He decides, no, it was tempting, I got to say, to trade of queens and then blockade the pawn and then try to take control over the c line. But why not actually keep as much material on the board as possible and just keep on asking the question to white? Because if the queen just moves, white is going to have to spend some time now thinking, what is the plan? What is the threat? And you can trade off queens at a later time, perhaps when white doesn't have too much time and there can be more critical problems to solve. And here as white, you probably don't want to be taking that knight, because if you take that knight, then again, the plan is very, very clear. You just triple on the D line, and then eventually you'll be going E5.
Yeah, and only black can play for an advantage in such a position. Interestingly, they're both playing a little bit of cat and mouse, and a draw is not the worst result in the world for Aaron either. So I'm not saying that they're angling for a draw, but neither player may try to press this position. I wouldn't be surprised if the queen stayed on the board. But, if you move your queen back, black could get a little frisky with this move, knight to f4, threatening mate, threatening the queen, putting a little bit of an idea of knight takes h3 one day. So it's not like the queens are just automatically going to toggle. In fact, this is a tough position to play in blitz because both players, I'm sure, are aware that black is better. And so white is constantly having to wonder about how to defend this pawn. And that takes time on your clock. It takes stress too. So he goes ahead and trades queens because knight f4 was a problem. g3 stops knight f4. But now how to make progress. The knight's going to reroute to f5. And white's going to try to push that pawn in case of knight f5.
Yeah, and this is one of those positions, where you involve everyone into the attack. You can reroute the knight to f5, and the king can actually go to f6, e7, maybe try to come up to d6, act as a blockader. You can also do what Tani's doing. This is a great strategy. Take control of the c line, and now here you do not capture the pawn on d5. Instead, you just let that tension simmer for one more move and until you bring in the reinforcements. If you go d6, well, unfortunately, you're going to lose a pawn because knight to f5 happens. Okay, now knight to f5, and Tani has picked up material.
And I can report we're going to stay here, but Fausti was able to beat, I believe, Rayo, and that actually vaults Fausti back up into a tie for first. So real big log jam here, but black is playing for a win now. And after knight c4, the king has to go back. But if the rooks trade, can you take on b2? You might self-trap your own knight. Knight takes b2, queen c2, and you would self-trap, so the knight wisely goes back. But the knight versus bishop ending is very good for black because some of these pawns, they're on light squares. They're going to get targeted by the knight. Knight f4 coming.
Yeah, knight f4, it is on tap. It's coming to the cinemas. And now I was actually expecting the king to actually centralize and make a dash for the queen side. And this is perfect strategy. You see, perfect control. There's no way that Tani is actually giving white any chance for anything like h4, any attack on the pawn. We're seeing some hesitation. The knight jumps into d4. Now comes e5. It's going to be followed by e4, e3, and white is slowly going to get pushed back.
And Andy just beat Megan, which means Andy vaults to 5 points. We currently have a three-way tie for 5, but Tani is trying to break that tie here, and I don't see any reason why it won't happen. He's got a lot more time. He's got an extra queen, and he's about to give checkmate. It's mate in 1. Aaron has to throw in the towel. Actually, he actually plays all the way to mate. Okay, and so Tani, up to 6 points, is in the driver's seat, but he's going to be followed very closely by Fausti and Andy. On 5, Aaron is right there with 4.5, and Rayo's not out of it because there are a couple games left. Okay, it's unlikely, but if he wins both games, I guess if Andy and Fausti both lost, okay, actually I'm going to eat my words. I think mathematically it's probably very unlikely, but he's going to try to make a go of it and get back to 50%. It's his final ChessKid Youth Championship because he'll be too old next year. Let's move on to round 9.
Let's move on to the penultimate round. And here we're seeing Rayo. I think he can play the role of spoiler. And he's playing white against Andy. So Andy there with 5 points. He wants to be finishing this event with 2 points in order to secure that spot into the semifinals. And Tani is now playing Faustino. Shall we go to this particular game as we're seeing a Queen's Indian on the board and also Aaron there with 4.5 points. He's not out of it as he plays Megan.
I couldn't agree more. Tani's on 6. If he's able to beat Fausti, Tani gets to 7, and he absolutely punches his ticket. Even a draw gets him really close, but a win absolutely gets him where he needs to be. Tani is fresh off the OTB performance of his life. He scored a 2640 performance rating in St. Louis and got a GM norm. So he's riding his hot streak here in this tournament, and he's done the best he's ever done. By the way, it's his final ChessKid Youth Championship as well. He will age out next year. He's making the most of it, and he's got a really good chance to advance to Sunday if he can navigate this Queen's Indian.
Yes, and you see, we join in when Faustino has made an inaccuracy, going knight to d7. It did invite like e2, e4, which is kind of the idea that you want to be doing in this, but to b3, I think is very harshly judged by the engine, because you just get your bishop going. E4 is there on the agenda, and then you can just simply enjoy the space. So why is E4 not being played by our players? Oh, that's finally making an appearance.
Yeah, right on cue. Now this game has taken on sort of a King's Indian setup, especially if the pawn pushes. Okay, even after it takes, it's still got that King's Indian flair with the fianchettoed bishop and with the hole on the d4 square. In fact, we might go back to a Maroczy bind. I generally take with the pawn in these positions, but maybe knight takes is a little bit in the air. The idea of taking with the pawn is that you have this d4 square, on lockdown. And of course, it might still happen after knight takes knight, but if white doesn't play knight takes knight, then this square is not quite as weak. He does play knight takes knight, though. I'm fully expecting pawn takes, yeah. The knight jumps in. We have another Maroczy bind type setup. But this is not quite as good as a normal King's Indian because you don't have any of the f5 stuff. Your queen is quite passive. c5 might even come one day. Feels like a good position for white to have.
It feels very, very pleasant. And I tell you, there's been some news into the other games. Megan defeated Aaron Mendes. So that means that Aaron is probably out of the chase in the quest to get those semi-final spots, finishing in the top 2. So what we're seeing instead from Tani, he didn't quite go for the c5 plan. That's still there. He's instead decided to double on the d line. I thought this was very natural. Again, the engine being, I think, overly harsh, because it's a very natural plan. Just take control of the d line and then you can back that up. But maybe he needed to trade off knights first in order to stop black from rerouting the knight to c5.
Yeah, Aaron is on 50%, so even if he wins, +1 is tough. Now, +1 did get to a tiebreak in our under 13 championship. That's only because Bodona scored 9.5, I think, and tipped the scales a little bit. Megan actually checkmated in 24 moves as black, so an awesome game by her. But we're going to keep it here because this game has the most impact on the standings. Knight back to d7, judged pretty harshly because bishop h3, and that knight's in a terrible pin with the rook already lined up with it and possible knight moves, which would make discovered attacks. Even knight to b4 might be the idea, but it's missed. Instead, weirdly, the bishop goes to the other diagonal. It's the contrapositive of the computer's suggestion, but that bishop's aiming at a bunch of hot air. I guess knight e7 was a small threat, but bishop to f8 stops the threat. Bishop h3 is still there, and it's funny. We're slicing and dicing here on both sides of the board.
Yeah, and I was going to say bishop h3 is a bit of a silent killer because somehow you don't necessarily look in that direction. But once you see it, it's so obvious. Okay, so now the threats are, as you're pointing out, knight to b4, knight to f6 is also there. Again, you have a very comfortable pin. You can even double up on the d line, and it's very difficult for black to just untangle. Here, bishop takes, and now you go knight to f6. Okay, black is dropping material. You got to drop an exchange. Knight takes rook. And actually, what does this mean for Faustino if he loses?
That's a good question. If I take a look at the standings here, got a lot of monitors open, but if Faustino loses, then Tani punches his ticket, and then it's all eyes on Andy's game, because if Andy wins, then Andy would jump up above Faustino. So it's a pretty bad result for Faustino if he doesn't win. He's not completely out of it, but he will need to win and look at the scoreboard, as we say, because he'll have to keep an eye on Andy's game. Let me just see if they play by chance in the 10th round. They do not play in the 10th round. Andy plays Tani and Fausti plays Aaron. So very important. If Fausti can hold the draw here, that will mean so much to his chances. If he's not, then Tani wins and Tani would go through, and then Andy would be in the driver's seat. But Andy is completely equal in his game. So a little bit of scoreboard watching by us, but let's keep it here and see if Tani can convert with the extra exchange. He's got the open lines, which is what you're looking for. Once the queen finds any sort of invasion square, it feels pretty difficult to hold off all of the heavies.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, opening up lines, that is the currency of the attack. And so I was expecting some kind of ideas such as h4. That's the English school of chess. You can never go wrong with h4, h5 and seeing what happens next. And instead, we're seeing some nice maneuvering, but the seconds, they are ticking down. And Faustino, he's making life difficult, actually, because although we have 2 open lines, there aren't too many entry squares for the rooks.
Yeah, the bishop and queen and rook are just perfectly guarding every single possible invasion. I think it is the weakness of the e-pawn that white needs to go for, and right on cue, queen c3 happens because the bishop has to choose a very lazy square. Now d7 opens up. Maybe you switch to put both rooks in the d file because bishop e6 is no longer possible. Instead, white goes for the pass c-pawn idea. Okay, that guards d7 in a different way, maybe a better way, and the rooks are finally invading. It took forever, but it's finally happening. You got to keep an eye on the e-pawn. If the e-pawn falls, black's defense falls.
There was a threat of a checkmate on h6, so that's why black played g5. But there we're seeing white's attack. It is a killer and a win for Tani. And that means he punches his ticket into tomorrow's semifinals. But Faustino, oh dear, it's not looking good as we go into the final round.
And we couldn't switch his time, but right as Tani won, Andy won. Andy does have 6 points. Tani is through, and Andy is through with a draw. So Faustino has to win, and he has to scoreboard watch. I think I saw his eyes moving around there during the break. I believe he was checking out what exactly the standings look like. And so guess what? We have 3 games, but 2 that really matter. Tani is through. Andy is through with a draw against Tani. Fausti has to win, and he has to watch the scoreboard. So let's keep it at the 2 split here. We have a very weird 92 as a response to the Perts, but that's the game. That doesn't matter as much for the standings. The left and the right of the screen are the most impactful for what we're going to see on Sunday.
Yes. And now the question is, does Andy know that a draw is sufficient? Because if he knows, then we could be seeing a situation where both sides just go, hey, how about a draw? And let's see each other maybe in the finals tomorrow. And if that happens, well, then we say goodbye to Faustino.
Yeah, but if Tani prefers Fausti to advance and not Andy, then Tani should try to beat Andy. I don't think that that's really how a player would think necessarily, because Fausti and Andy, I mean, they both are like 3,200 blitz. I mean, are you really favoring one over the other? Anyway, I'm going to jump to one. I'm going to jump to the Andy versus Tani game because Andy is through with a draw. So even if Fausti wins, that may not be enough. We're going to stay here. We will keep an eye on Fausti's game versus Andy. Right now, it's fairly level, as is this game. But what do you see on the chessboard, Yovi?
Yeah, well, black has got their desired breakthrough. I mean, we've mentioned it many, many times that when you are black against the Catalan, the problem piece is that bishop on c8. So you try to get it out either by going b6, bishop b7, c5, or you get it out in a very direct way with e5. And that's exactly what's happened. And white, on the other hand, has this massive tension in the center, but it has come at the cost of a pawn on a c4. So the big question is, after the trades on e5, there will be trades, will white be able to just take control in the center, start pushing black back with eventual e4, f4 ideas?
There you go. And by the way, just to set the scene, because we are early in the game, if you were not here earlier this morning, first of all, where were you? Oh, you were golfing with Magnus? Okay, that's cool. I would have done that too. But Yuj finished first place in a tiebreak over Sina in a Sonnenberg-Berger tiebreak. So Yuj, as the first place person, will play the second place person, who could very well be Andy. We could have a Yuj versus Andy semifinal, which was the final last year. Tani, I believe, is actually he's not guaranteed to finish first place. If Andy wins this game and his Hunenberg-Berger tiebreak is better, then he actually could eclipse Tani. But yesterday's second place, or this morning's second place person, Sina Movahed, the other grandmaster, will play the first place finisher from this pool. That's the stage. But again, we're more worried about the result. And Andy has taken a small lead, provoking a weakness. G6 played to stop knight f5, but now there's some dark square weaknesses. And pawn to d5, punching through in the center and on the king side.
Yeah, nice stuff there. I liked this knight to h4 business, you know, provoking that weakness. And now d5, big question. What to do? Do you play the very natural move, which is just a capture on d5 with a pawn, initiate a set of trades? Or do you play white at their own game and also just amp up the tension just with moves such as the knight coming to c5, you're prepared to give back some material? Nope, it's gone for the first plan. But I was kind of also intrigued if black gave back that extra material in order to release this bishop on c8.
Instead, he tries to cover up some of those weak dark squares. If he could just pick up his dark square bishop and move it somewhere to the king's side, he might feel a lot safer. The bishop retreat, not loved by the computer, but obviously he's trying to do some damage on the d file and want to duck that bishop back out of there. Bishop g5 looks a little annoying, but maybe it's just all for show. Maybe the queen accurately defends all of the weak minor pieces. So instead, pawn a5, okay? Just trying to play pawn a6 and create new problems. Throws away the advantage, but I do kind of like the idea of just creating more problems for black. All right, Tani has equalized. A minute left for each player. If we're scoreboard watching, Fausti has taken advantage over Aaron Mendez. He is better. He is up a pawn. He has to win, and he has to hope Andy loses, but Andy is not losing right now. He's just continuing this plan of playing pawn a6.
Yes. And a6, well, that is a spanner in the works, because the question is, do you capture on a6? Do you sacrifice the rook? Well, Tani just said, yes, I'm going to give up the exchange. I'm going to get the light squares. And he's done it by going b5, which is a really interesting. And here there's a pin in town, so I would be tempted as black just to go h6 and kick that bishop away. As very interesting pawn sacrifice, exchange sacrifice there from Tani.
Yeah, obviously you can be a little more freewheeling when you've already know you've punched your ticket to the knockout tomorrow, but the computer actually liked the idea, and the computer's going to love this one. Bishop takes f2, double exclaim. If the king takes, we have a fork on e4. Tani has totally taken over the position, and Fausti's got to win his game, so he can't watch this, but Fausti just became BFFs with Tani, because if Tani wins and Fausti wins, we will have a two-person tiebreak. We'll have 2 games of 3+1, but that's not going anywhere yet because the rook on a8 is hanging. The rook is coming to f1 to triple attack this pawn. Now black does have this saving grace e4. In fact, maybe black should just play it right away to guard the rook and get the bishop dropping back to guard the knight. Let's see if Tani finds move. 10 seconds left for Tani. Is he going to play e4? We'll find out.
Yeah, he's got a choice. He can go e4, he can go bishop to d5. He goes for rook to d8, still setting up this idea of bishop to d5. That's a very important defensive idea for black there. So rook f1, e4, okay, again. This is really sophisticated stuff there from Tani.
Take. Okay, the bishop drops back. That dark sword bishop was worth more than a rook, so the bishop has to stay alive to guard the knight on f6.
Yeah. And just note, the clock is ticking down. The players are under huge stress. And it's quite funny because it feels like both sides, they just want to fight it out. And suddenly the evaluation bar has gone in white's favor. It's just going up and down, having a bit of a party, but just goes to show the position is crazy.
Yeah, not quite back rank mate for white. So now we're starting to settle in a little bit. But with 4 seconds left, I'm not even sure that's the most accurate term. Fausti has yet to win his game against Aaron. He remains better, but we're going to stay here. We're going to scoreboard watch. Okay, looks positive development for white to get the queens off the board. The rook usually dominates on the open board, but don't count out the knight. Knights are super tricky.
Yeah, and suddenly there's been some clarification in the position. And here it's only Andy who is the one pressing for something. He can snatch that pawn on h2. he gets away with it. But his bishop is very trapped, and okay, the bishop can anchor itself onto e6, and this should be a draw.
And Fausti is no better than equal in his game. He's only got 2 seconds left, so it's going to take a little change in fortune for Fausti to make a comeback here, because he's not winning and Andy's not losing. But when all of the critical players have less than 5 seconds on their clock, we need to stay here. I mean, there's possible mates for white with that knight and rook teaming up, especially when knight h8 is your only move. This is looking tough. The black king is being driven backward. I don't know. Computer says draw, but black seems like he can barely move. Fausti is taking the advantage in his game.
Yeah,
he's getting the job done, but can Andy get the job done here? Can he avoid a loss? And there we go. There is no way to lose the game when your opponent has no mating material. Fausti does his job by winning, but Andy does his job by drawing. And that means that Andy goes through by the skin of his teeth with 6.5. Fausti is the hard luck third place finisher with 6. And we already knew Tani was going through. Now we know he goes through as the first place person. We do have one game still in progress. It is a draw, which we don't say very often, but it was a draw. We had 2 draws in the last round. What happened? Kids, did you run out of steam? No, actually, there was some crazy action. Yovi, we need to look at the scoreboard to make sure my math was right.
Yeah. I mean, it was a roller coaster of a round. Really, it felt like anything could happen. The situation was very, very tense. But yes, we knew that Tani Adewumi had punched his ticket to the semi-finals, and indeed, with that draw, he finishes on 7.5 points. But for Andy Woodward, wow, that was quite the thrill there, as he clung on and got that draw that he so desperately needed. And he makes it through to the semi-finals by finishing in second place. But we do say goodbye to Faustino Oro. His name might mean gold in Spanish, but here he doesn't get the golden place. And so there we have it, Mike. We have our semi-finalists for tomorrow's Sunday knockout.
Yeah, we know that Yuj is going to play against Andy Woodward. A rematch from last year's finals will be in the semifinals. And we also know that Tani, by virtue of finishing first place, will play Sina Movahed, who is the second place finisher from earlier today. Earlier today, we had a 100% win rate. Here we had a 90% win rate. We only had 3 draws from 30 games. Unbelievable fighting chess, and it was so cool to be a part of. Megan finished strong with 1.5 out of 2. I love to see the strong finish there. And Aaron stepping up, almost got a 50% score after going from the under 13 champion to playing in the under 16 section. And Ryo Chen, I salute you. You have played in probably more ChessKid invitational events than any other kid. You've won 2 events. And we're not saying goodbye to you as a chess player, but we're going to say goodbye to you. Probably your last ChessKid event that you'll play in. But congrats to Tani and Andy. We were so happy to have Fausti's brilliance be on display today as well.
Absolutely. And for Tani, he came off a sensational over-the-board event, just now getting his first Grandmaster norm. Now he finishes in the top position to secure himself a spot in the semi-finals. And we're going to go on a short break, and when we return, we're going to have an interview with the Golden Man himself, Tani. So stay tuned.
When I set the bullet record on Chess.com, I didn't really pay attention to it being like a record or anything. I was mainly just trying to have fun, and it kind of came as a surprise. So it was kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I play this time control a lot, actually. It's one of my favorite time controls. It's a mix of, I guess, brain processing speed, like reaction time, and mouse speed. Doesn't really have much to do with like calculation or anything. Not much big chess related stuff, but in general, like some basic tactics and tricks are crucial and vital in these short time controls. So yeah, I guess I can't really describe what's happening in my brain, but there's definitely a lot of things and thought processes going through. If I played Magnus 100 times in the 10-second time control, I feel like it could be like, okay, I feel like he would be really good at like the chess puzzle. So I could lose a few games to that aspect. In general, I would probably estimate maybe 85 to 15. And my favorite, I'm not sure exactly, but probably something around that. I feel like I could lose a couple games on the board, so. Probably Tata Steel Challengers. It was probably one of the biggest wins of my career. I guess I haven't really won many strong tournaments, and also that was an international one. So, and of course, getting to qualify for the Masters next year. Kind of everything piling up. I mean, I did get quite a bit lucky at some places, but in general, that was probably my biggest accomplishment and win over the past year. Next year at Tata Steel, I'm really excited and eager to play against pretty much everyone. I mean, in specific, maybe players like Gukesh, Vincent Keimer, and Ishigiri. I feel like there's a very interesting mixed field of players, so I'm really excited to play against anyone in general.
Your brain is a supercomputer capable of millions and millions of complex calculations and decisions. But your brain needs exercise, practice to keep it sharp and incisive. Chess puzzles are a great way to work out your brain, building pattern recognition, critical thinking, and memory. Doing puzzles every day makes your mind fit, helping you build creativity, problem solving, and memory skills. Puzzles on Chess.com featuring hundreds of thousands of original, beautiful problems tailored to your level. Whether you've never played before or you're a veteran, whatever level you're at, Chess.com's coach will help explain both the puzzle and the solution so you learn as you go. Most importantly, Chess.com puzzles are fun. Find interesting, beautiful solutions while building streaks, leveling up, and competing with friends. Try puzzles today on Chess.com and give your brain the exercise it's craving.
We are back, and we are here with our Group B winner, Tani Adewumi, and it was a really intense day, full of exciting chess. And Tani, I gotta ask you, that was quite a wild ride. How are you feeling after all that?
I feel great. I'm happy that I won.
Yeah. And it was an interesting event. I mean, you started off strong, then you had that blip in the middle with 2 losses. I mean, what did you tell yourself to get back from that?
They were the 2 highest rated players in the event. So, I mean, I wasn't too upset about it. I was like, okay, I'll try my best to do on the other games, and I'll have a different color versus them. So I just brushed it off and just kept playing.
And Tani, one question that we always have to guess at on air, but I've never asked a player, so it's time that I do so. How much were you scoreboard watching in the later rounds when you had that lead? Were you starting to think about, okay, a draw is a good result, I'm looking at the other games while playing my own game? How much do you look at the scoreboard and other games in the middle of your own games?
Basically, after every round, I was checking the games and the scoreboard. After round 9, I think I was maybe guaranteed or something like that. But I was checking it every single game and the games too, see what progressed.
Yeah.
Smart move. I know you love sports, so that makes sense that you're a scoreboard watcher. Yovi, What else do you have for him?
Right. No, I was just actually going to ask for that moment because round 9, you know that you're into the semis, but yet we saw you really fight it out with Andy and what was going through your mind? It was quite the game there.
I didn't want to lose. I didn't want to end on a loss. So I was at least trying to, because like at the end, I was pretty sure I was not going to win that end game. It was probably going to be a draw, and then um then Andy would have qualified too. So I was just playing. It was like we were playing blitz, not like no pressure.
And Tanya, I want to ask about your form. I mean, you're just back from the OTB event of your life, GM Norm 2640 performance rating. Do you feel like you're playing the best chess of your life? Do you feel like you're playing better chess than the Knicks are basketball? Tell us about how you feel right now.
I feel great. I'm playing to my standard. I feel like I'm playing well. I'm happy with my playing and with this event too. I'm happy in general.
Nice. I think we asked you a few questions before the tournament began, and you said one of the hardest parts about chess is the psychology. Now,
Right.
you've played the same event for many years, and in fact, it is your last year that you're eligible because despite what us and your parents want, you are getting older. We tried to stop it, but it's happening. So did you go into this event with any kind of different psychology or anything you learned from previous years that helped you succeed today?
Not really. Yeah, it's just in my head. It's just blitz. It's not much to think about. I should just play, let the moves play tough, and just like I was pretty relaxed throughout the whole tournament.
Uh, and Tanya, I got to say, it's great to hear that you're relaxed. And I just wanted to ask you, because as Mike mentioned, you got your first GM Norm and now you won this one. Is there anything different that you're doing, or is it all just falling into place?
I mean, just like regular practicing. Not really much anything major, but just like getting better. So
Now, last summer, you had one of your biggest international events. You got to go overseas and play in Switzerland. Do you have any designs on playing any kind of upcoming tournaments? Reykjavik or Granky, or, well, I could name 10 others. But do you have any other big international events you have your eye on?
not currently right now. After St. Louis, I'm just like taking it slow. I'm not really sure what I'll play, but I'll see.
Well, talking about things that you're going to play tomorrow, you are going to play Sina Motherhead. How are you feeling about that particular matchup?
I'm happy. He's a really strong player. So it's going to be a tough match, but I'll try my best.
And we've got a question from chat, which I'm going to try to help you out a little bit here before I give you the real answer. But Hamrock Chess, who I think is the same viewer who got my trivia question right, what has been the hardest challenge you've faced in your titled chess journey? And before you answer, Hamrock, you should buy his book. My name is Tani, and I believe in miracles, because he talks about some of those challenges. But Tani, I want to hear directly from you. What has been the hardest challenge that you faced in your chess journey?
Hardest challenge? I mean, I've had quite a few slumps where like I just couldn't for like a couple months. Nothing was working. I would say just being like mentally, and it goes back to the psychological impact. Just like being able to just kind of just like brush it off, and just like have confidence in yourself. I say that was probably my hardest challenge when you're like in a slump and I couldn't get out. But then I eventually got out. So.
Yeah, it's great to hear that things are changing for you, because we've all been there with the slumps and we can all feel you there, but everything seems like it's falling into place. So I just wanted to ask you one question from our chat. This is from Newt Has a Flute. It says, how do you stay calm when low on time? And I think that is what we are all dying to know, because we saw you with the clock ticking down to seconds, and yet you kept on playing those good moves.
I don't really know. It's like instinctual. I'm definitely not calm when I'm low on time. But I just try to make like as many like quick moves as possible, logical. It's quite stressful, but if you just one move at a time, play one move at a time, I'll be fine. So that was just my.
One move at a time. I love it. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing tomorrow in your game, in your match against Sina Move Ahead. I'd like to thank you, Tani, for joining us. Congratulations once again on your magnificent performance and the best of luck for tomorrow's match. But
Thank you,
wow,
Amy.
what a day it has been.
Great work, Tani.
Thanks.
And fantastic performance there from Tani. And after a full day of action, I feel like I have raced at 100 miles per hour here, Mike, but we do have our 4 semi-finalists.
Yeah, what you might have thought was going to be the final is actually going to be the semi-final of Yuj against Andy. That was last year's final. Keep in mind, Yuj has won this event in 2024. Andy won it in 2025. One of them will advance to the finals in 2026. And Tani, with his best ChessKid Youth Championship of all time, the pride of Columbia Grammar, the Lions, he will try to take on Sina Move Ahead, who will try to stay on Move Ahead, but he's got his work cut out for him. I think this is a fantastic final. Semifinals. All 3 GMs advance. One of the strongest ELO-rated IMs advances, and I love what we have coming up tomorrow.
I absolutely agree with you there. It's going to be a stunner. And yeah, you mentioned that we're going to be seeing like a repeat of last year's final where we are seeing Adomush fighting out against Andy Woodward. I think that things got so tense in that particular final that Andy had to go outside and just shoot a basketball in order just to reset, refocus, and get going.
And speaking of shooting a basketball, go Heels. For those of you who are into college basketball, you know exactly what's happening in 2.5 hours. That's all I have to say. You go Heels. Okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know the pressure that's building up in my body about tonight's college basketball game. But that's going to be a little bit of a release because today was so stressful. But we get to do it all again tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to covering it with you, Yovi. This is going to be an awesome finals to our event.
Absolutely. I mean, already we were sport with a whole lot of exciting chess, but we're not done yet because we are going to have another day of fantastic chess. And you know what that means? The stakes are going to get higher as we enter into the semi-finals. For the players, it just means one thing. They have to win or they go home. The nerves are going to get tougher, but one thing is for sure. One young player will emerge as a champion. I'd like to thank everyone at home for joining us and joining in the fun and watching. And we'll see you all tomorrow at the same time. Bye-bye.